So anyway, sup, fucker?
How the hell are you, bud?
Dude, I'm doing good.
Yeah,
I mean, I drank a little bit too much last night, but it happens.
I felt like drinking too much last night, but I just went to bed instead.
Yeah, boredom is a killer.
I don't know what it is lately. Like 9 o'clock, dude, I'm done.
Really?
Yeah. Which is totally opposite. Like, I ended up waking up at like 5 this morning. Wide awake.
Just fucking ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did that the other morning. I woke up at 5, and I was up on my phone until like 9, and I went, this is dumb. I'm going to go back to sleep.
Yeah.
So I did.
Yeah. Yeah, I woke up at like 4:45. I got up and went to the bathroom, and then like tried to go back to sleep for like half an hour, and I was like, fuck it, dude. I'll just go to the gym right now, and then be ready to go for fucking go time.
Hell yeah. I dig it.
So, yeah, what do we got today?
Oh, dude, we're going to talk about telepathy and UAPs, because apparently those two things are directly connected.
Seems that they could be, you know.
Get my notebook here. Hard to
Seems
forget
they
my
could
notebook when I don't, have to leave anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really take any notes, but I think I've got a pretty good handle on what people are talking about, what the the buzz.
The buzz.
Yeah.
The buzz of your system. Yeah. Start us off. Which one do you want to talk about?
Well, we can talk about Jake Barber since we've kind of delved into his story a little bit.
Yeah. Let's go Jake Barber. I got to tell you, like, when I first started seeing those videos pop up with him, I'm like, dude looks crazy. Like, he looks like Peter Weller from RoboCop.
Yeah.
So it's like off-putting when you see him, and I was like, no, but then you listen to him, and he's actually a really sharp guy. And,
yeah.
His story was just amazing.
Yeah, so I watched that interview with, what was it, News Nation.
Yeah.
That he did.
Coulthard or Ross, I think it is.
And so I was like, oh man. So I sent it to Stitch, and then Stitch was watching it. I think we were at work. He was listening to it watching it while he was on break, and he texts me and he's like, "This is pretty interesting. Does this fucking guy ever blink?" He's very intense.
Oh, extremely intense.
But yeah, then I watched. So I watched that whole thing, and then I don't know if you watched the podcast he did with American Alchemy.
I started it. I didn't get around to finishing it.
It's a lot. I think it's like 3.5 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
But he kind of goes into a little bit more detail of the things that he knows about and kind of
interesting.
Suspects that is going on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So Jake Barber is a former. Was he a special operator? I know he was a helicopter pilot.
Yeah, I think he was an operator first. And part of what he talked about was that he had to go get certified to be a pilot. He had to go through the pilot's training to be part of that program. But it was also to like throw off his cover because he was involved in some way in espionage. I couldn't really wrap my mind around it when he was describing it.
Yeah, so I know that he got involved with... it was a special project that was called a Red Team project, and his team was supposed to try to come up with ways that like our foreign adversaries would possibly like do attacks on us, or whether they be cyber attacks or like physical attacks. And so
good luck.
Yeah, his team would be, in charge of doing like coming up with these operations and then like testing out our defense systems against those kind of attacks.
Okay.
So I know that he was like a special sector that he was involved with that was, counterterrorism, but in a way that's like they're trying to foresee what possibilities like Russia or China could have, and then kind of dummy test these defense systems or whatever, see what our response capabilities really are. So, which is really interesting in itself. I mean, makes sense to, you've got these things that you suppose are going to work, but you don't really know unless you actually test them.
Yeah, try it out.
Yeah.
Do like a soft launch kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was some of the stuff he had talked about with that. I was kind of having trouble wrapping my mind around. Again, because the guy was just like staring into my fucking soul.
Are you hypnotizing me right now?
Can you imagine poor Ross Coulthard sitting there going, God, I'm so uncomfortable.
I don't know. I think he was into it, dude.
No, he was. Yeah. I mean, I've watched several of his interviews with different people in that kind of spectrum of, I guess, out there topics. And that was one he was really excited for. You could tell because he would just try to get like expounding information and probe him for a lot of questions and things like that. So I thought that was really cool. Like, he's sitting here as a serious journalist talking to this guy about this totally outlandish thing, but he's taking it seriously.
Right.
Which a lot of them don't, and a lot of them kind of like make these people in this realm look like an asshole when they're kind of condescending, and I hate that so much.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the past, it's been such a taboo thing to talk about in a serious way, like alien aircrafts or like non-human intelligence was kind of the realm of sci-fi, and
it's all hoo-hoo.
And so like having a guest on and talking about it in a serious manner was really like looked at as kind of a joke and not real journalism. So I mean, I think the times have changed now where there are so many people that are interested in the topic and believe it to be more possibly true.
Yeah, like at least worthy of investigation.
Right. And, the government has admitted that these programs do exist, so it's like, okay, then give us some real information. Let's have a real conversation about it.
Yeah, sidebar to that, did you see what's going on with that?
About what?
With, I can't remember if she's a congresswoman or a senator, Luna?
Luna?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
With the whole...
task force that she's been...
Yeah, the disclosure task force that's going to tackle UAPs and Epstein and JFK and all this other stuff. Like, cool.
Yeah.
We're like 100 years overdue for this, but let's go.
Yeah. I actually saw there was another briefing that just came out, I think last week. I just saw it the other day that was talking about like the JFK assassination, and they were basically saying, there really isn't any more information. All the information is already out there, and you should already know what happened.
No.
They didn't actually say that the CIA was involved with it, but
no.
But I mean, sounds like it.
Yeah, I think the CIA has been involved in a lot of shit they should not have been involved in.
Yeah. Which, I mean, ties into kind of the alien things because, like, JFK was kind of into that shit. He was trying to figure it out, and he's the one that was in charge of the space race,
Yeah.
And so it was, I don't know.
Have you heard the JFK conspiracy theory about aliens? It was... So it's theorized like why they actually killed him was because he knew about aliens. He had all the information he wanted to disclose, and they were stopping him. But he had told Marilyn Monroe, and then Marilyn Monroe had set up an interview with a reporter, was going to spill the beans on it, so they killed her. And so JFK was so livid, like he was going to go public with all of that information, so they killed him.
You guys have heard it here first.
I'm pretty sure I heard it on Reddit, so...
yeah. You know it's true.
It has to be true. There's actually more truth on Reddit than there is on fucking CNN, so why not?
Yeah. So, I mean, Jake Barber's story, I mean, what's really compelling about his story is that, like, he's one of these whistleblowers that is an actual first-hand, like, experiencer. And that's kind of rare. You know, you've got Lou Elizondo and Dave Grush, who are, like, you know, they've been parts of these secret organizations that have information, but who knows how much of that information is true or is being fed to them in, like, PSYOP campaigns to like the Rick Doty.
Yeah, just disinform all the way down the line.
Right.
And that is a problem I have. Like, I look at David Grush, and I like him and his stories are entertaining and all that, but 90% of them are second and third hand tales.
Right.
Like, yes, you had your experience as an actual experiencer, but everything else that he perpetuates is like a trusted colleague told me this, or a friend, or whatever. And I'm not discrediting it, but there's just no, like, meat to it. It's just chewing on the bone.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Jake Barber thing. One thing I really enjoyed about that story was tracking the progression of this guy's life in that interview, where he talked about, you know, his life story with his parents and being raised by his grandparents and so on and so forth, but then being inducted into the GATE program very early on in his life. And you watch the trajectory and you almost kind of go like, was that curated from front to back? Like, they spotted that he was gifted, put him in this program, and then kind of furthered his career?
That's what it sounds like. I mean, and he kind of, on that American Alchemy thing, talks a little bit more about that, him thinking that it was, and they do that in a large part with kids in these programs in high school and shit. But they find these kids that have these weird, I wouldn't say weird, but like different mindsets of like being tested. So he talks about like him being like doing an IQ test, and he scored like 130 or something on this IQ test,
which is pretty smart.
And I think the average is about 105 or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's between 95 and 105.
Yeah. But then they gave him the test again, but he had to wear this mask that restricted oxygen flow, and he scored like a 150 or something like that.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, but it was like it was supposed to test like if you're under pressure, like under
like duress,
how much that affects your IQ. And his score got better as opposed to worse, so that he works better under pressure than most people. And so he was already kind of predisposed to being the type of person that they're looking for.
Yeah. Not
only to be in the special ops program, but like as a special operator, and to go into these like weird kind of covert operations.
This weird situation where you have to go pick up an alien spacecraft with a helicopter.
Yeah.
Which honestly sounds really cool.
Does sound really cool. So yeah, I mean, he was in the military for a number of years, and he was working as a helicopter pilot, right? And his team was like, they were working in conjunction with these other teams that were conducting like military operations, and so they were kind of just support to like go and pick shit up and deliver it. And so they would get their orders. Okay, this is your spot. Just go here, make this pickup, and then deliver it to another place. And so they were doing all these things, and he said most of the time it was they would go there and pick up like a storage container unit, like a big metal storage container unit and then move it from one place to another place. They don't know what's inside the units. Their task is to, because everything's so compartmentalized, you know, the people on the ground know what's going on, what they're supposed to do. The people that are doing the flights know what they're supposed to do. And so they get the information, go pick up this one certain thing from here and drop it off at this other location. That's all. You know, that's all the information you have. So they get this call to go do this pickup. And so when he gets there, he sees this large egg-shaped thing on the ground, and they already have it in the cargo net thing that they're supposed to haul it with. He doesn't know what it is. He thinks it's weird, you know, and so he picks it up and hauls it off. Unbeknownst to him, like later on, he figures that it's an alien spacecraft.
Yeah, and I think that's where the story takes a crazy turn because of how it interacted with him. Right. And how he was so sure that whatever was inside was communicating with him telepathically. And what really got me on it was when he's talking about flying it, and he felt this overwhelming sense of maternal love. And it broke him down, and he, you know, was crying and upset and whatever, and it took him a while to kind of like come out of that. But it rounds back to the telepathy tapes, where all these, you know, the autistic kids, they could see their mom's thoughts or see through her eyes or know exactly what she was thinking. Yeah. But a lot of them couldn't do that with their father. Right. Which is so crazy to me that those two parallels are there.
Yeah, I mean, in those telepathy tapes too, I mean, it's a lot, I don't know, I think that it's a lot, most people have a deeper connection with their mothers anyways than with their fathers, you know, on an emotional level like that. And so I could see where, you know, that link is already kind of established, especially, you know, you're in your mother's womb for 9 months.
Yeah. You were literally fostered in her stomach.
Right, right. But also the telepathy tapes, the kids talk about, or the spellers, talk about they can do it with anybody, the receiving person has to be open to it. Yeah. And so I don't know if it's just that the fathers aren't like really...
Well, I know in one of those cases the father just didn't seem into it at all. Yeah. And it almost seemed like he kind of didn't want any part of it. Right. But another, you know, one or two of the other fathers were kind of like, well, one of them was absent, and then another one of them, he would try to, but it just didn't work, kind of thing. Yeah, it's so interesting, the idea that whatever was inside this craft was communicating directly with him, not to anybody else but him. Right. I mean, I assume so anyway, because if that was the case, I feel like we'd have more whistleblowers than just him. But being able to communicate an emotion is so much more interesting to me than just being like, this is my thought. Yeah. Boobies, you know, like being able to convey an emotion not just over distance, but through objects and things like that, as though time, space, material are irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean, and so he goes on to talk about how, like, he had kind of looked into it afterwards and came to the conclusion that they were running these psyops, or psionic teams. So they would have a team of psionic people who have like psychic abilities, and they would kind of invite these crafts from, and he doesn't talk about like it's from outer space or from like extraterrestrials. He doesn't really know where it comes from, where they come from, and but they would invite these crafts to come into the area, and it works. And so they would invite these crafts, and sometimes they would, have the ability to connect psychically with these things and have them land somewhere, or get them to a certain area where they're able to hit them with like an EMP and make them drop out of the sky.
Mm-hmm.
So the story is that that's what they're doing. They're using these psionic teams to invite these crafts, and then getting them to a location where they can get them down on the ground, confiscate them, and then like kind of study them and reverse engineer
Mm-hmm.
technologies from them.
Well, that was a thing that he talked about was, like you were saying, we pick up and do these drop-offs, and immediately whatever it was that we picked up was it was gone. You never see or hear about it ever again. And now he's into this program to where they're trying to create a third-party crash retrieval program to be able to retrieve these UAPs or UFOs, whatever you want to call them, and take them to a science and data center so that they can be studied
Right.
by more than just government-based officials.
Right. Which it should be. I mean, it should be kind of like the military is definitely recruiting like the best they can get, scientists-wise, and but it should be like an open forum for people that have maybe a wider range of knowledge.
No, I agree.
And they can be studied where it's not so compartmentalized that you only are looking at this one little piece of the craft, and you don't know what it is. You're just trying to figure out what it does, because that's how they do it. They break it down, according to Bob Lazar. They break it down into you're looking at this specific part of the motor drive system, and the other people are looking at the craft itself. The other people are looking at the material, and nobody knows what anybody else is working on. And so you don't have any information that can like add to your knowledge of how something actually works.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, because if some of these parts to these crafts are working in tandem, let's say the structure material, it works directly with whatever the power source is, or however it actually works. Like, you may need both parts of that puzzle to put it together.
Right.
To me, it's like having 80 different mechanics work on one car.
Yeah.
Instead of having one guy who's like good at electrical and body work, he might be able to have a better insight.
Yeah.
Or one guy who's like great at transmissions but also does interior. Like, put them all on there. Let them all study it.
Yeah.
And then whatever they find or they're able to reverse engineer, don't like proprietize it. Like, don't put a copyright on it. Let everybody have it.
Yeah.
Which I know that's like a perfect world type of thing, but if you want a perfect world, you got to start by taking one step.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that would be so cool if there was a third-party system to it, and a lot of like the black government gets taken out of the equation, because now you're depowering these people who have been doing this for 100 years.
Yeah.
And you're putting the power in the hands of the people, letting science solve the problem and humanity solve the problem, not just people with an agenda.
Yeah. And that agenda is usually like money and power.
And war.
Yeah. And which kind of goes against what like Jake Barber's talking about. He's saying that these things are like, not only Jake Barber, but also Chris Bledsoe, who we're going to be talking about in a minute, are talking about these things are, it's kind of the opposite end of that. You have to, these things are summoned with emotion and connected with emotion and thought and consciousness, as opposed to like death and destruction.
Yeah.
What they're trying to be used for or utilized for.
Yeah, I mean, even, I hope I'm getting this name right, Mike Herrera, have you heard that one?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, he was a Marine Raider, and I want to say he was in the Philippines. I could be totally wrong on that, but they were out on a mission, and basically he discovered that they were using reverse engineered UAPs for human trafficking and drug trafficking and all these other things, and it's to me, if I was like the alien race who they, stole that shit from, I'd be like, no, I'm taking this.
Yeah.
You're evil.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I saw him on the
Sean Ryan
show.
Yeah.
Which apparently, Sean Ryan, I was watching his podcast the other day, and he has a little advertisement talking about like other people that create content. And he's like, if you want to use any clips from this show, go right ahead.
Yeah. I love that about him.
I was like, dude, that's pretty tight, man.
Yeah. It won't copyright it.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not going to copyright it. Just tag the Sean Ryan show, and you can use whatever the fuck you want to use.
That's really cool, and I think a lot of content creators should be doing that.
Yeah.
Because it not only is it good for the creator who's using your stuff, but it's good for you because somebody could go, what's the source of that? I need to go find it, or get a clip from that, like Mike Herrera talking about it, and then go, oh shit, I need to go listen to this.
Right.
And you're just giving each other traffic.
Right.
Yeah, I fucking love the Sean Ryan show. I wish I was as patient as him to just sit and listen and only like chime in here and there, but his content is really good because it's either like politics or it's, kind of paranormal stuff.
Yeah.
And that's right up my alley
right
now.
up my alley. Yeah, I kind of like looking into Jake Barber's story and Chris Bledsoe's stories kind of led me in several different directions of like, because they both like reference different people and who they've been involved with, or and so like I went down kind of chasing, like Chris Bledsoe talks about Diana Pasulka, and so I kind of watched some of her stuff, which kind of it leads into it or is like adjacent to their stories and what they're talking about. And then I was watching another Danny Jones. I don't know if you've ever seen his.
It rings a bell.
He's another podcaster, and he just sat down with Stephen Greer, which I have a hard time with him.
Is he the guy with the white rim glasses?
No.
No,
He doesn't
okay.
wear glasses. He's like a younger kid. He's probably 30-ish. I'll show you later.
Yeah, I'm sure I would know it, but yeah, Stephen Greer and the Jake Barber thing tied directly together because for like weeks we were hearing, oh, fucking disclosure, it's gonna happen, and Stephen Greer keeps teasing this big thing, and it was three things. One was his podcast, which I can't listen to it. He seems like a nice enough guy, but he loves to hear himself talk more than he loves to really say a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The other thing was the egg-shaped video and Jake Barber, because that was his video. So those things all came out on the same day. It's like, that's not disclosure, but I'll take it.
Yeah, he. So in this podcast interview, he was talking about the Jake Barber stuff, and so yeah, Jake's got a lot of information until he got involved with Lou Elizondo, and Elizondo got him filled with all this propaganda, and I was like, oh fuck.
That's like, to me, it's like Trump. When Stephen Greer talks about Lou Elizondo, it's like what you say and do can stand on itself without you having to have comparison.
Yeah.
You don't have to be like, I'm the good one, he fucking sucks. And Trump would actually get a lot more praise from people if he just stopped bashing on Biden. We know Biden sucked.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah. He's not going to run again. Don't worry about it.
No.
You can't run again either. So
yeah, you could just say, this sucked before, but now this is how we're going to fix it and move on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the same thing with Stephen Greer. Oh, Lou Elizondo, but I was watching one podcast and they were talking to Lou about it, and he's like, the interviewer asked him, would you do a debate with him? He's like, absolutely. I'd sit down and talk with him. I think it'd be great. And
Yeah.
I agree, because it's like these two different people on opposite ends of the spectrum of the same world. Shouldn't you guys be working together in some way or another?
Well, it seems like Steve Greer is kind of convinced that Lou Elizondo is being used as a disinformation agent and doesn't know it. But it seems, it's like, dude, if he's being used, then how do you know that you're not being used in the same capacity? Like,
Yeah. Well, and it's, I'm sorry, you cast a big shadow of doubt on yourself when one of the people on your team is fucking Rick Doty.
Yeah.
We need a shirt that says fucking Rick Doty.
Fucking Rick Doty.
He's the master of jazz lighting.
On my t-shirt guy work on that.
Yeah, I don't think that's true at all. I was actually watching this video. I think this dude's German, but he just like talks about different stuff, and he's done a couple episodes on Stephen Greer and kind of breaks down that his opinion is that Stephen Greer just has a huge ego.
Yeah.
And he just has to.
He's a doctor.
He's a doctor.
He's a learned doctor.
I know, because he tells you like every other sentence. I was a trauma doctor. Dude, we know.
Yeah.
You've been saying that shit for 35 years now. We know.
Caused me trauma.
But yeah, the whole Stephen Greer thing it's off-putting, but there isn't a part of that we'll have to round back into this episode. But
So yeah, he's full on into the what are they called? Psychic teams.
yeah, so he came up with CE5 meditation.
Right.
And so I was looking into it, and I watched a couple of the videos, and as far as like meditation goes, it's on par. Some of the way he describes some of that stuff happening, I'm kind of not totally convinced, because he's also cast a shadow on himself with faking some UAP stuff
Right.
that we had talked about before. But essentially it's you can use thought, light, and sound to summon UAPs.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the stories he was talking about was you have to imagine thought, light, and sound as like three circles that are all connected. And you have to be able to imagine it in your mind and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, and we're doing this, and then you look over into the field, and suddenly there's a crop circle that looks exactly like it. And I was like, is there though? Or I think it's something that's worth a shot. It's just hard to buy into it knowing he came up with it.
Yeah. Yeah, in that interview he was talking about how he's got this thing scheduled for, I think it's April of this year, where he's doing a cruise.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like a UAP summoning cruise or something like that. And so they're going to go out into the middle of the ocean, and then I don't know how many hundred people it is they're going to have on the top deck, and they're going to be all focusing in and trying to invite UAP to interact with them on their cruise.
Yeah, I saw that. I honestly think it's a cool idea. It's still hard.
Yeah.
Well, and even kind of going down the rabbit hole on Reddit about people who have gone to some of these, conferences with him and done some of the CE5 meditations and so on and so forth. And a lot of them are just like, yeah, I totally got ripped off. We were supposed to go out at night and do this meditation practice, and he was supposed to lead it. He basically showed up and was like, okay, goodbye, and then fucked off.
Yeah.
And it's like, I paid like $1,000 for that. And so yeah, stuff like that really just makes it hard for me to believe him, even though I really want to.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like I kind of get sucked into it, and then I go, fuck this guy, it's bullshit, and then I get sucked back into it again.
Yeah, I just don't know if he's like making money off of these things, and if that's the case, then in my mind it's totally bullshit. It's just
He is making money.
Yeah, then it's just a money-making scheme, and it just leads to the reality of grifters in the fucking...
Yeah, it's rough. And he talks about like he was on Joe Rogan years and years ago, and he's like, and the black government took down that episode. I was like, I'm pretty sure Joe Rogan just took down that episode because it's not very good.
Yeah.
But he didn't take down the Lou Elizondo one, motherfucker.
Yeah.
But yeah, the CE5 meditation is something I genuinely want to give a try. I mean, obviously not while it's cold outside, because I'm not going to go sit in the cold outside for no reason.
Yeah.
But how cool would it be to actually get some kind of mastery on this and then be able to psychically, like, manifest a UAP?
Right. And there are people that do it and do it on a consistent basis.
Which brings us back to Chris Bledsoe. My nose is super itchy. Probably from all that cocaine.
No, I didn't do nearly enough cocaine to get itchy.
Eyes aren't pinned nearly enough.
Of course, I only got here 20 minutes ago, so...
I did all the jumbos.
Yeah, Chris Bledsoe is an interesting, very interesting story.
Yeah.
You want to tell us about Chris Bledsoe?
Yeah, that's a guy. His name is Chris Bledsoe. Yeah, he was a pretty normal guy by any standard. And one night he's out in the woods, with his sons and some other people, and trying to hunt down some game for food, and ends up seeing this UAP over the hill. And I may be getting this wrong, but he saw this UAP in the same spot where his wife had died.
Well...
Or is that a different one?
It's the same night, but so it's him, 3 guys, like his neighbors, and then his son who's like 17. And they go down to this river down by their house. It's about 3 miles from his house. And they're going fishing. And so, he's the only one that has a 4-wheel drive that can get down into the spot that they want to go to. And so he's driving, but this is like 2007 or something, right after the market crash. He was a real estate guy, a builder, and kind of after the market crash in that time period, he was kind of wiped out. So he was kind of a wealthy guy.
He got fucked hard. Yeah, I think he was saying he lost $19 million.
Yeah.
Couldn't imagine.
So at the same time, he's suffering from Crohn's disease, and so his body is kind of falling apart, and he just lost everything. He's living now in a trailer at his parents' house, on his parents' property. So these guys that he knows want to go fishing, and so they go down to this river, and they park there, build a fire, and the guys start fishing. He says he doesn't really feel like fishing because he kind of is down in the dumps about what's going on in his life.
Rightfully so.
And so he takes a walk down the riverside, and as he's walking down, he's got to go down. He says he walks about a quarter of a mile, and he goes up. He's going to go kind of walk through this cornfield, and so he goes and walks up this hill. As he gets to the top of the hill, he sees it's like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, but it's January or February in the south, and the sun is going down around that time. So as he comes up this hill, he sees this big bright light he thinks is the sun, and so he's like walking up, and he gets kind of closer to the top of this hill, and he looks out at what he thinks is the sun, and he sees 2 suns. So there's 2 big orange burning red lights, and so he's thinking to himself, that's not right. What am I seeing? What the fuck is that? And he sees them start kind of moving, and so he's really what the fuck is that? So he ducks down, and he's kind of hiding in the bushes, trying to figure out, just popping his head over to see what is going on. And so as he pops his head up, he sees the 2 lights coming through just over the trees past where he's at, and this is maybe 200 yards away, over the top of this field. And so he's watching him come in, kind of closer to him, and he gets scared. He's like, I don't know what the fuck this is. I'm gonna run. And so he's like ducks back down, turns around and gets ready to run. And as he takes off running, he looks back to kind of make sure that he's, these things aren't getting closer to him, chasing him. And as he looks back, he sees this bright light from above him, and he looks up, and there's one right over the top of him. And kind of that's the last thing he remembers. And then all of a sudden, he's walking back to the fire where he left the guys, fishing. So the next thing he remembers, he's walking back towards his fire. He's about maybe 20 yards from them, and he's walking up, and it's dark now. Mm-hmm. And in his mind, he's like, "Holy shit! I think I just saw a UFO. I don't know what what that was." And so he's kind of excited. And as he comes up, he yells to the guys, he's like, "Hey, you guys aren't going to believe what I just saw." And
they're like, "Where the fuck have you been?"
They turn around like, "Where the fuck have you been?" So, "What are you talking about? I've been just over there for like 20 minutes. I just walked down there and came back." And they're like, "No, you've been gone all night long." So apparently he'd been gone for like 4 or 5 hours. To him, it was like 20 minutes or half an hour that he just walked down there, saw this thing, and then ran back.
Yeah.
So he notices that his son is missing. So the 3 guys are at the fire, and his son is not there with them. And his son is like 17. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, "Where is Junior at?" His name is Chris Jr. And so they're like, "He went to go look for you, but he's been missing too now. Like, he's been gone for a couple hours now or two. We can't find him. We couldn't find you." And so he like freaks out and goes running off back down the road he came from. Starts kind of calling for him and yelling, and has a feeling he might be hiding in the brush. Mm-hmm. And so he kind of veers off the trail to go look for his son in the thicker part of the brush and trees and shit. And as he's walking through there, his son jumps up and grabs his legs and pulls him down to the ground, because he's hiding there. He's terrified. And so he's like telling his son that you're not going to believe what I just saw. And he sees that his son is freaking out, like petrified. And so he asks him what's wrong, and so his son says that he just saw 2 creatures that they were like really small people that had really dark skin, like black
and red glowing
eyes, and he thought they were demons or monsters or something. Mm-hmm. He was convinced they were like aliens or demons, one of the two. He wasn't sure. And so Chris, the dad, is like, "Well, I just saw a UFO." And so they're like walking, he gets them to stand up, and they start walking back to the truck. And they're both talking about what they saw, and as they're approaching, the 3 guys at the fire are kind of hearing what they're talking about and start kind of panicking, like, what the fuck are these guys talking about?
What is out here?
Yeah, they've been missing for a couple hours, and now they're talking about seeing a UFO and seeing creatures. What is going on? And so while they're like trying to figure out what is actually going on, one of the people at the fire says, "Hey, what's that?" And they turn around and look, and they see a group of all these stars, like 9 or 10 stars, that start kind of like swirling, and it looks like they're swirling down in almost coming down to the earth. Mm-hmm. And 3 of them all of a sudden just shoot down right kind of across the river from where they're at. And so they get freaked out, and they all jump in the truck and take off. So as they're driving, they're all terrified, but Chris, the dad, who's driving, is still just kind of in shock and saying that he wasn't scared. He was just kind of mesmerized by the fact that he thinks that he just saw it. There's definitely a UFO.
Yeah.
And so they're driving, and they get down to this point of the road where it's a hairpin turn. And as he's driving up to it, there's a big ball of light. And so this hairpin turn is where his wife died. About 20 years earlier. She had been driving, took that turn a little too fast, rolled her car, and then passed away. And he was the one that actually found her.
Yeah.
So as he's approaching this hairpin turn, he sees this big ball of light just over the top of that spot, and gets this overwhelming sense of like this thing is communicating with him, saying that, you know,
she's okay,
and it's not his fault, and he doesn't have to carry that grief or carry that guilt with him anymore. And so he says that, you know, he feels kind of vindicated or relief from this thing telling him that, you know, she's fine, she's okay, and it's not your fault. You don't have to be sad or feel guilty about anything that has to do with that.
Which is probably just like an amazing weight off your shoulders.
Oh yeah.
Like I couldn't imagine having that kind of experience.
Yeah.
And just like the elation you would feel, and just feeling like you're no longer dragging around a bag of bricks.
Yeah.
You know, that's got to be great. But yeah, what's also great about that too was that his Crohn's was like crippling. Like it almost killed him at one point because of being over medicated, which I kind of think it did kill him, because he had had a near-death experience with being over medicated, and then another one when he was, I think he was 10 years old, where he got shot and he's in the hospital, and he like floated up into space and he could see the whole earth from space. But I personally think he just died twice, and you know, that kind of like,
he had a little connection with that outer realm that we're surrounded by.
yeah, just kind of in a slipstream of consciousness in some way or another, which is kind of why I think he was able to communicate with them, or even to this day where he can summon them.
Yeah.
In the same way, like he sits down and he does a prayer and asks them to show up, and then you'll see him, and anybody can look these videos up where he goes out and just like summons UAPs, and there's one or two or sometimes three, and you're like, holy shit, that is so cool.
Yeah.
But I do think that is tied to that, kind of in the same way of Jake Barber's like intelligence quotient is similar for him to be able to tap into it.
Right. So yeah, I mean, having a near-death experience, like a lot of, you can look up, you know, we've done a near-death NDE episode before, and a lot of these people after their near-death experiences have this kind of psychic link, or like another sense that they can kind of peer beyond the veil that is put in front of all of us, you know, to kind of see all these other things that are going on all around us all the time. And it's just we've talked about many times before, just a tweak in the frequency in your brain waves that connects to these things, which is interesting because Chris Bledsoe was actually on a Discovery Channel or one of the TV networks, like, was kind of doing a story on him, and they went to his house. It was Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, actually.
Yeah.
So they went to his house, and they had a doctor come and set up a EKG machine to his head, and so they could test his brain waves as he's summoning these UAPs. And there was a definite change in his brain waves when he's trying to psychically link to them and invite them in. And it was something that they measured on the readouts of his brain scan.
I wonder how close like the visual would be on the brain scan to, like when Travis Taylor was talking about psychedelics, and cutting out all your higher level brain functions. I wonder if they're similar.
I bet it. I mean, it's a good. Yeah. Need to do some EKG experiments on psychedelics.
Dude, I would love to see
compare
that,
the two between, the psionic people, which that's what it is, the term that they use, the psionics teams.
Super fucking cool name.
Yeah, you kind of sound like an X-Men.
Yeah.
I'm part of the psionic team.
One of the psionics.
So yeah, his story doesn't stop there though. After he sees this light above this ball of light still, everybody in the car is freaking out except for him still. And so he drops the guys off. They're like on the way home to his house. He drops them off at their individual houses and then goes back to his house, and they go inside and he's telling his wife what they just saw. At this time it's like 11:30, almost midnight. And so he goes inside to like pop on the TV and the radio to see if there's any news coverage of, if there's like invading forces or, he doesn't know what the fuck is going on.
He's like, this is some Orson Welles shit.
Yeah.
I better go tune in.
So he lives in close proximity to Fort Bragg, so he's thinking maybe it was like something that the military's doing, maybe these are airplanes or aircraft that the military has there at the base, and or if it is kind of an attack, there'll be a story on the news about it or whatever. And so he's like scanning through the stations and doesn't see anything. Then they hear this thing go over his house, and so he says it sounded like a helicopter almost. So he runs outside, and it's another one of these. It's just a big orange ball of light that goes right over the top of his house and kind of goes over and just is hovering on the backside of his property.
They're just fucking with him now.
Yeah, yeah. And so he's like, we got to go see what this thing is. So he tells his son, let's go out there and look at this thing and see what's going on. And the son is like, no, I don't want to go. I'm freaking out. I'm scared.
Pussy.
I just saw these two fucking demons out in the woods. I don't want to go see them again. He's like totally terrified.
Yeah.
And so.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as, and we've joked about this, as much as we want to see an alien, we kind of just want to see it on TV.
Yeah.
Or on YouTube.
Or from far away.
Yeah. Like, holy shit. Give me those binoculars. That's an alien.
That's a fucking alien, dude. And so he decides he's going out to look at these things, and so he's like, okay, you stay here. I'm going to go out and I'm going to take the dog. I'm going to go out there and see if anything's out there. If there's something out there, the dog will scare it away.
Yeah. Because he has like this big 120-pound dog.
Yeah. Meanwhile, he does have like a kennel. He's raised and bred dogs for his dad was a breeder of dogs, and so he's got this kennel of like 15 hunting dogs, hounds out in this kennel. Now this thing is kind of over by the kennel, and the dogs are howling and freaking out. So he's like, we got to go make sure the dogs are okay, that they're not, nothing's going on over there. He's like, you stay here, I'm going to go check it out. And his son is like, yeah, fuck that. I'm not staying here by myself. And so he's like, okay, so they decide to go out. So they take their one dog that they have is a lab or something that they have in the house with them, and they go out to check on the rest of the dogs in this kennel. And so they get down to this kennel, and they hear something going on inside the kennel. And so there's like a door, the entrance on the front and the back of the kennel. And so his plan is he's going to send the dog in on one side and then run around the outside to the other side so that the dog will chase whatever is in there out the back side.
Yeah. Intercept.
Right. And so he's telling his son, he's like, all right, this is what we're doing. You go around the other side. So we're kind of like on signs where they run around the sides of the house.
It's time for an ass whooping.
It's time for an ass whooping. I'm going to beat your fucking ass.
I
And
can't
so-
be scary.
He sends the dog in, and he runs around one side, and his son freaks out and just runs the fuck back to the house. He's too scared. So he runs around one side, and as he gets to the other side, he's like standing kind of beside this tree, waiting for the dog to come out the other side, and he hears footsteps or something behind him. And so he turns around to see what it is, and he sees this being that he describes as an adult-sized, or a child-sized adult.
Mm-hmm.
He can't recognize if this being is wearing clothes or not. He just sees this like 3 foot, he describes it as a toddler, but with like adult features. Almost like a cherub.
Mm-hmm.
And so he sees this being, and he says that it's like a just shining, shimmering like whitish blue light, and there's a triangle on its chest that's just beaming light out. And
So it was a Care Bear.
yeah, doing the Care Bear stare at him. and so he sees this thing, and he turns around, and he's just like mesmerized by it. Like, I don't know if he spoke to it or whatever, but he said the message was communicated in his head that we're not here to hurt you, we're here to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's standing there staring at this thing, communicating telepathically about like, you know, everything's going to be okay, we're here to help, you know, you don't have to be scared.
Yeah. Unclench your asshole.
Yeah. You can unpucker your butthole and get ready to be probed.
This isn't going to hurt a lot.
The more you fight, the more pain it's going to be.
Hey, if you relax, maybe I'll hit the G-spot while I'm in there. I just got to get a sample.
You might enjoy this. Just, you have to have the right mindset.
Yeah, you have to be open to it.
Yeah. Take a shot.
Wouldn't that be like the ultimate game changer for aliens if they were going to probe you? Like, they get you in the ship and you're terrified, you're like, it's okay. Have some tequila.
Yeah.
Shit's
We just
gonna,
brought you here to party.
shit's going to get weird, but you might as well be relaxed for it. Makes our job way
This
easier.
could be fun, or it could be terrifying. It's up to
Yeah.
you.
Maybe you get enough shots in here, like, whatever, man. Do whatever you want back there.
Yeah. So as he's communicating with this thing, the dog finally runs out the other side of the kennel, and so he turns around, looks at the dog, and turns around, looks back, and the thing's gone.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was kind of the end of the incident that night, but ever since then, so that was like 2007 that this all took place. But ever since then, he's seen entities and beings.
Yeah, that was the part of the
Kind of.
story where it kind of took a turn for me. Because he talked about the one that was always in his house. It was always around him. And then he described it like Gazoo from the Flintstones, which started making my mind reel about like ancient alien stuff. Like, why was there an alien on the Flintstones? You know, it's kind of a weird conundrum when you really stop and think about it. But yeah, where he could communicate with this thing, he called him Johnny,
Yeah.
and he would talk to him all the time. And he had said that like his wife and his kids would get video of him communicating, but you couldn't actually see what it was he was communicating with. But that was so interesting to me. That is what he was saying. Was it real, or was it something he made up in his mind, or was it kind of a projection for him that only he could see because he was telepathically linked?
Well, also, something had happened. I can't remember what it was. When he was seeing this entity that he called Johnny, I can't remember what happened. I don't know if it was the Crohn's, but he was like very heavily medicated.
Yeah. So he was going through. He. What was it? So he was getting really depressed because of like the tribulations his family was going through, and everybody thinking that they're lying and they're making it up, or people within the church were saying, oh, he's, you know, messing with the devil and seeing demons and things like that. And his children were being picked on at school, and they were kind of being like lambasted almost. And so he started becoming very depressed about it, and started seeing this doctor who put him on all those pills and then put him on lithium. And that's about the time he like OD'd and died.
Yeah.
But then there was another incident that came about where his daughter had come home, and she was, you know, crying for being picked on, for being part of the crazy family. And so he talks about, I went outside and I kind of screamed to the heavens of, you know, thank you for curing me, but this ruined my life, and blah, blah, blah. And then he has another experience with an entity where he walks out to the kennel, and it's really dark outside, he can't see, but he knows that entity's in front of him and is like telling him, you know, everything's okay, we are still here to help. Kind of apologizing of like, sorry you're going through this, and hands him something and says, you have to hold on to this. And he said it felt like a furry tube, about the size of a squirrel, about the same weight, but it didn't have arms or legs. It was just, you know, tubular. And they handed it to him, and he dropped it. And the entity told him, like, you need to pick that up and hold on to it. And so he bends down to pick it up, grabs it, looks up, and it's gone. And I didn't actually finish the rest of that story when I was listening to it, but after that, things started going more positive for him, because he understood that he needed to tell that story. He needed to put it out in the world. And then when he did, a lot of good things started happening to him.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, he's doing okay. People believe him. He's going on all these shows and things like that. I'm sure he's making some money off of it. And yeah, you know, life is better when you're not being the outcast anymore. Now you're being somebody who people are listening to, going, your experience is amazing and everybody wants to hear about it.
Yeah. So yeah, that entity was actually, he saw the entity, and it was a lady. And that was the entity, is called the Lady.
Yeah, he did say he could see her face.
And so he put that out there, that he had seen the Lady, and you know, that's what kind of got the attention of government agencies. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden he's like at work or something, gets a call from one of his kids who says that there's a government official at the house and wants to talk to him. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, government official, who is it? And he's like, oh, this guy from NASA is here, wants to talk to you. So he said, all right, I'll be there in about an hour, tell him to stay there. So he goes home, meets this guy, his name is, I can't remember his name, some NASA scientist.
Yeah, it's the guy he ended up becoming really good friends with.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's like a Russian name or German name. I can't remember the guy's name. But ends up like spending a night with him. The guy like is really interested in this lady. Chris doesn't know why, you know, what the interest is, until later on he finds out that the lady is kind of an entity that's seen in a lot of different cultures and different aspects of both paranormal stuff and alien type events, where it's like all through history this lady's been seen kind of guiding humanity through like tough times, or giving inspiration. So all these people are doing research to find out who this lady is and what she has to do with the bigger picture on, you know, human life. Which kind of dives into like Diana Pasulka, who is a PhD in religious history. talks about the lady and a lot of these entities. But yeah, so he gets investigated by NASA. He gets investigated by like pretty much all the alphabet people in the government.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Vatican contacts him, and they want to do their own investigation. So they bring him to the Vatican. And
Free vacay.
Yeah, kind of tell him about what the history is in what the religious history is with the lady, and all these saints who have seen the lady, and then like kind of develop these psionic abilities
Mm-hmm.
afterwards. So there's like saints that were like able to levitate, saints that would like kind of predict the future and be prophetic, because they have this link with these beings that are outside our normal realm of thinking or belief. So that's where Diana Pasulka comes into, because she was able to go into the Vatican archives and research and find all these stories where people are talking to this lady, and people are having visions and meeting with these entities that are talked about as cherubs
Mm-hmm.
in the historical religious text. That it's not the Bible, but like, you know, the saints and the bishops and the, you know, whatever, the Catholic Church that are having their own experiences, writing these things down, and it's all in this archive. And she's like, there's like 57 miles of files of all these different accounts of like
There's a lot of crazy shit in the Vatican's files.
yeah. And so she's like, she had access to it, and gave specific examples of like, you know, these people that have seen these beings that are like cherubs, and they have a little glowing triangle on their chest. And so, you know, when they heard his story about these people, they wanted to kind of talk to him, because they've seen that before, they've heard about that before, and so it was of their interest to kind of get his story. And so he's talking about how like he has his picture in the Vatican archives now next to the Pope's. And so like his picture is like right in the middle, and they put his picture in one of the like ancient texts about concerning like other beings and stuff, as like a reference to like another person that has seen this.
Some kind of a big deal.
So he's kind of a big deal, and you know, 1,000 years from now they'll be like, who the fuck is this guy?
Who's this guy?
Random photo of.
I think I had kind of tuned out of it by then. I was having trouble listening to that, and my daughter was being a dick. But that's an interesting thing, where all these people see the same kind of figure, the lady. And it kind of goes back to that Jake Barber thing of maternal love. Maybe, you know, that's kind of the conduit he was in, was to communicate with her without a direct communication.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting theory.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I wonder if she's hot.
Diana Pasulka, I would assume, being a being of light.
Them tits are probably amazing.
Whee!
Like headlights.
Yeah. Diana Pasulka talks about it, where it's the same type of beings are seen in like DMT and ayahuasca trips, and you know, the similarities between these beings that are being seen in these altered states, as opposed to these people who have these different abilities that can kind of attune their brain to almost the same frequencies, like we talked about, you know, Travis Taylor talking about it.
Yeah.
Dropping those filters that we have.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's something to be said, and I was actually just saying this the other day. There's something to be said for, like, the dream thing, sleep paralysis. Like, when people across the world, people who've never even seen a TV in their life, see the same thing in their sleep paralysis episode as so many other people, you know, where you see the Hat Man, or the one that sits on your chest, and things like the Hag. or the monkey or whatever. And it's similarly with DMT or other psychedelics, where you'll see the same things that other people see. They just use a different vernacular to describe it.
Right.
Or, where you see some people call them the monkeys or
Machine elves.
the machine elves or things like that. And it's like, I'm pretty sure we're all seeing the same shit. We just describe it differently.
Yeah.
But there's something really profound about that, especially considering like ayahuasca in particular, where that's South American. So again, people who've never seen a TV or even communicated with that outside world, how can they see the same thing that you can see in your DMT trip?
Yeah.
And you've never communicated. And even worse so, like if you've never done DMT or even heard about it, and then you do a trip and you see the same shit, like there's something to it.
Right.
My mind's just too small to wrap around how that works.
Yeah.
For now.
For now, yeah. And Diana Pasulka talks about that, how people, for the most part, do these things, and going into these psychedelic states, intention is everything.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going into it, your intention has to be set, for the right reason.
Yeah.
Or you're gonna have a bad experience. And what intention you go in there with is going to attract the positive or negatively charged entities that come to you or are attracted to you.
100% true.
So she's talked about it. It shouldn't be abused. It has to be like kind of regarded as something that is spiritual almost,
Yeah, we were just talking about this the other day at work, where you have to treat that with reverence.
Right.
If you abuse it, it's going to abuse you back,
right.
And you're not going to like it.
Yeah.
But it really is less about like, I want to get higher, I want to see trippy things. It really is a spiritual adventure that you go on. But you have to respect it in that same way and not use it as a means for fun. Well, I mean, within reason.
Yeah.
It can't be like, it sounds really cool, let's fucking take some mushrooms. It has to be more like, again, with intention of knowing why you're doing it. And not just having this aspect of like, well, I like the body high and I like to see cool shit. It has to be so much deeper than that. And you also have to understand what it actually does and how it will kind of like punish you.
Yeah.
If it has to.
Well, you have to be ready to take the introspective journey of like self-discovery, whether that is good or bad. You have to set your intentions of improvement, like I want to get past this, or I want to, expand my capacity for, love or expand my capacity to receive or give love, or recharge my positive side. And sometimes to get through to the positive, you have to push the negative through.
You do, and that's the thing I was talking to Scott about, because he recently did a little trip and he was struggling with the idea of closing his eyes and seeing what's on the other side. And I told him, like, you really have to just surrender yourself to it. You can't fight it, because it's going to push through one way or the other. But the more you fight it, the more you're going to have a bad trip.
Yeah.
Now, I don't personally think there are bad trips. I think there are trips that are really great, and then there's trips that teach you something about yourself, And that's kind of what he needs to do next time he does it, is just let go and let everything flow through you the way it needs to do.
Yeah. Be willing to take the trip.
Yeah, instead of kind of being stuck in that loop of, let's try playing a video game, or, let's watch the show or whatever. It's, to me, that's not even the most interesting thing, what you see with your eyes open. It's what you see when you close your eyes that is way cooler to me.
Yeah.
And that, like, as much as an ego death fucking sucks, you always come out better for it.
Yeah.
Every time.
I always just got like, I would always just kind of tune into my body, and then it was almost like move my hand, but then I could like in my mind visualize the Tetris of like things that are connecting to make that thing happen in my body or something. I never got like super like crazy shit, but it was always just kind of a geometric kind of like patterns relinking each other to make that chain connection to my hand or whatever.
Yeah, it's funny that everybody talks about seeing geometric patterns. Everybody.
Yeah.
Or certain other things that pop up, and I've talked to a few people where you see like I think it's Shiva, the Indian statue with the different arms and like the flowers and shit like that, and a lot of people kind of see the same thing, but everybody sees geometric patterns,
which is kind of wild. Like, I can't remember what show I was watching was talking about like a lot of the temples in Thailand and India, the way that the structures are built, and they have these big pillars that are kind of like, you don't really know what it is, but it's actually a three-dimensional structure of sound.
Yeah.
And so like if you put sand on a speaker, on a board that has a speaker running through it,
you'll see it like change shape with different frequencies.
Right. Different frequencies will make
cool
a different pattern. And so like if you tune it to a certain thing, it'll make this pattern that looks exactly like what those pillars look like. So it's a shape in a three-dimensional space that's representing sound vibrations on certain frequencies.
Which again kind of gives a lot of credibility to the CE5.
Yeah.
With the thought, light, and sound, you know, where you're thinking with intention, but you're also propagating those intentions with light and sound.
Yeah.
You know, this being made of light, there's got to be something more to her being made out of light than just she's shiny, you know?
Yeah.
Or the sounds you hear or don't hear are also going to, you know, initiate a different thought process. So if you're feeding yourself a positive sound, you're going to be able to project more positivity and vice versa.
Not only that, is like tuning your own frequency to be a positive sound, like to be a resonate, a positive vibration. It sounds really but
it's not.
But it's not like people talk about positive vibes. Dude, have positive vibes, dude, and it's legit. Like,
well, I mean, that goes beyond so many different things. Just being able to vibrate at a higher frequency, and we've all kind of known it. You know, when you're sad or angry or depressed or whatever, and then there's certain people you can be around that just naturally vibrate at such a higher frequency. It's almost healing to you to be around those people.
Yeah.
And it's the same with you know, with music. You could be in a really terrible mood and hear a certain song, and it just like perks you up, and you're like, what am I being so shitty for?
Yeah.
You know, it's all these things in life, I think, are about vibrating and resonating at the correct frequency, you know? So just being bitter and negative all the time is, you're going to just stay bitter and negative. But when you can vibrate a little bit higher, you can go somewhere else. You can do something else.
Yeah.
And I think people who can't buy into that, man, you just got too small of a mind. Just think bigger.
Yeah.
Let go of preconceived notions of what you think it is, because really, in the span of the cosmos, we're nothing. We're this big. You have to accept that there's something bigger and broader outside yourself, and there's a lot that you just don't know.
Yeah. So did you watch that Sean Ryan with Lou Elizondo? This recent one he did about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago?
I haven't watched that one yet, but I've seen so many with Lou Elizondo that I'm sure I could get it.
So there's a part in there where he's talking about scale, and he talks about like the scale of the universe, which is the measurable universe, which the light that we can see from stars. The farthest that we can see is about 40 billion light years.
Yeah.
And so the vastness of space from our perspective is at least 40 billion light years across. The light year, if anybody doesn't know what that is, it's the distance light can travel in the time frame of a year. Light travels at 189,000 miles per second. So that's a long way.
Pretty quick.
Yeah. So, however far you can get going 189,000 miles per second for 40 billion years. That's how far across our known universe.
It's a long fucking way.
The light that we can see. But he says that is the same space ratio, as the atoms inside of our body is.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are to the atoms inside of our body. It's the same, almost exact same ratio. So us being on this little tiny dot in the middle of this vastness is the same as an atom inside of our body. Which is really weird, like mind-bending.
Yeah, I mean...
Not to think about, like, you know, are there universes inside of each and every one of us, and so forth, down and up, like in, you know, in the confines of space.
Yeah. Well, that is definitely a mind-bending concept, but it is cool to think proportionally we, as our living bodies, are like space itself.
Right.
Well, you know, we're all made out of fucking stardust anyway.
Stardust people.
We're beings of light driving a meat spacesuit.
Yeah, that's why I think that, like, what if these eggs or UFOs or UAPs that we're seeing are really just like the nanobots of the, you know, the higher beings that are much larger than us. They're seeing these infected cells inside of the space dog and then injecting these nanobots to fix what's wrong with. They say, oh, they see this fucking cell in there that's got cancer.
Yeah.
That this, you know, this planet is dying or this atom is dying. Let's see if we can fix this atom. So they send these little nanobots in there to see what's going on.
Yeah. You got to probe it and diagnose it first.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Thinking of the whole, like, psychedelic thing and eggs in particular, and Chu was talking to me about one of his trips where he was like inside of an egg and just being passed back and forth by these two incredibly large beings, just throwing him back and forth like a tennis ball. So there's something to that too. But it's funny how the shape of an egg is almost perfect.
Yeah.
So when you see these like crafts that are shaped like an egg, you realize that there is some kind of like life geometry to it, where you think about it, you were a sperm, which was like shaped like an egg with a tail, and then you go into a fertilized egg in your mother's body, and when you're in a womb, that's essentially your egg until you're born. So it's kind of like the circle of life in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some kind of parallel line with it.
Yeah, I was watching an episode of Ancient Aliens. It was... They had seen like something that was talking about eggs, like egg-shaped crafts.
Mm-hmm.
And so they went to a wind tunnel to test like the aerodynamics of an egg, and it's like almost perfect.
Yeah.
It's just like the perfect shape that has like zero drag. Just cuts through the air like nothing.
Well, yeah, and it's not subject to, you know, Bernoulli's principle or anything, because there's no wings, there's no nothing.
Right.
So the air just flows right around it perfect.
Yeah. Not to mention that Mork from Mork and Mindy traveled to this planet in an egg.
That's true.
And he
Mork
slept
from
in
Mork?
Yeah, Mork from Mork.
I haven't seen that in so long.
Yeah. What are they watching? Oh, there's an episode in The Walking Dead, the Daryl Dixon series, where they're watching Mork and Mindy.
Oh, yeah.
That's what, yeah, reminded me of that. But yeah, so yeah, Chris Bledsoe is now kind of has the ability to, and he people like go and try to test him, and so he'll take them out on any given day, and like there's even Danny Jones on his podcast had him on there, and they just went down to the beach after the podcast was over And they sat on the beach, and he did this where he invited these. They don't like to say summon because summon refers to like you're
Like-
telling them what to do.
Yeah.
So they say invite, and so they're inviting, psychically inviting these things to come and interact with them in their space. But they go out to the beach, and he invites in, and he says they see like 4 or 5 orbs come in and kind of float around, only maybe 200 yards away from him, and then just
Wow.
fuck right the fuck off.
I think that's going to be the ticket for real disclosure. Is people who can do that, they just call in these beings or these entities and show them to the world.
Yeah.
Because as much movement as we're having like within our government and other governments and things like that, I think that's going to be the ticket.
Yeah.
For a guy like Chris Bledsoe to be on national TV and be like, watch this. And then they fucking land and come out and they're like, hey, what's up, fucker?
Hey, Chris, nice to see you, bud.
It's Paul. Hey, guys. Hey.
No, I mean, even there's people who are psychic people who have given predictions of 2025 and 2026,
Mm-hmm.
who have said that, will be the year of enlightenment, and people will understand a lot more about extraterrestrial and interdimensional beings,
Mm-hmm.
and it will be kind of disclosure will be kind of a widespread knowledge that's gained.
Yeah. Which I think is a much better way for us just to be able to inherit knowledge about things instead of being shown something.
Right.
Because, we all dream about disclosure as like, aliens land on the White House lawn. But what if it was just this big information dump?
Yeah.
What if they would telepathically communicate with all of us to say, you don't have to be afraid, we're here to help. This is what we are,
Yeah. Well, I think it has to do with the realization that consciousness as a whole is a singularity. So it's like consciousness of people is almost a shared consciousness of knowledge, and just the realization of you can tap into that if you can train yourself how to do it.
Ever since the whole telepathy tapes thing, I find myself going back to looking at more about consciousness regularly
Yeah.
and trying to understand it. And I like the way you put that it is a singularity. Because if it is a singularity, that means we are all part of it.
Yeah.
Because it's just one. It's not Spencer and David, we're together.
Yeah.
That even though we have our individual identities, we're still part of the same stream.
Right. And it's been tested, and you've heard of the 100 monkeys thing. I think we've talked about that before. Same thing as with humans. Like if something is a basic knowledge for a certain percentage of the human race, then it should be kind of a widespread knowledge type thing.
And it spreads intrinsically, like with the monkeys, where these monkeys are peeling their bananas, and now suddenly these monkeys on another coast are doing the same thing,
Right.
without being shown.
Right.
Yeah, consciousness is like the trippiest subject to me.
It really is. Like, consciousness really is the driver behind the wheel in all of our spacesuits that we're
100%.
puppeteering.
Yeah, because I almost think of being in a body as being confined.
Yeah.
In a way, because you're here to learn some lessons, and then when you've learned them, you're going to be done. Nirvana or whatever you want to call it. That's genuinely what I believe. Like, you'll keep coming back until your consciousness reaches the higher state that it's supposed to be at, and then you're done. You don't have to come back anymore.
Yeah.
But I also kind of believe this idea that we are all the same person. Like, when I die and I have to reincarnate, I'm going to reincarnate as somebody else, but everybody else on the planet is still me. I watched this really trippy mind-bending video about it, and it makes perfect sense. when you put it through the lens of consciousness, of why we as people are so connected and how we're able to subconsciously communicate. You know, like the moments where you go, oh, yeah, I should text so-and-so, and then you grab your phone and you get a text from that person immediately, or even to an extent manifestation. You know, and I had a really cool moment the other day with that, where I was in the shower and I was getting ready for work, and I was thinking about this song. It was a cover of Unbreak My Heart by Weezer, which is kind of a fun song. Like, it's super serious when Tony Braxton does it. When they do it, it's like a little more light.
Yeah.
And for some random reason, it popped in my head. And so I get in the truck and I leave for work, and I get down the road and I skip like 2 or 3 songs, and boom, pops right up. I think that is our consciousness at play in some way or another.
Yeah.
Or even, you know, not just like the text thing, but you think about somebody you haven't talked to in, 10 years or whatever, and then they pop up on your social media, or they randomly call you, or you'll come across an old picture of them or something. I think that's all part of that.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I think that it's all connected, man. Like,
it has to be. I don't think there's any way it can't be at this point.
It's seems so random, but when you actually look at it, it just connects so much. Like, everything connects with one thing or another. Like, and so, I mean, like you've talked about, like reincarnation, and kind of in that realm of like trying to reach nirvana. I believe that it's really, you're this entity that is kind of training to master self-control, and really that's what this life really is about, like just trying to master. And most religions have like the basic 7 deadly sins or 7 sins that you're trying to master, like don't fucking kill people.
Yeah.
Don't be addicted to sex, don't be addicted to food, like master control over yourself.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of master being this free entity in the realm of energy and space.
Yeah.
But, this is kind of like the area where we got the training wheels on.
Yeah, I mean, once you kind of get yourself to vibrate at that right frequency when you're in control,
Yeah.
then it kind of makes you feel like, well, in my case anyway, like there's no more point in me coming back. So you can go to nirvana or the collection or whatever spiritual idea you believe in, but that's really your goal, is to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, once you've already beat a video game like 10 times in a row and know exactly how to do it, then you kind of want to move on to something else.
Yeah, you move on to the next thing and the next thing. And if you kind of go by Einstein's theory that energy cannot be created nor destroyed, I'm pretty sure that's Einstein. But if you believe in that, then you have to also believe your spiritual energy is energy and it cannot be created nor destroyed.
Yeah.
Which is also part of why I think we're the same person over and over and over.
So where does paranormal stuff fit into that realm, do you think?
I find myself questioning the paranormal stuff all the time. And I gotta be totally honest, I don't actually believe in ghosts or spirits or things like that. Not necessarily. I'm not saying it's not real, I just don't have enough information to create my own point within my own mind. But that's kind of why we do ghost hunting and stuff like that, is to have experiences and collect that data for yourself.
Right.
And for me, try to figure out what I actually think it is or what it could be. But I think just in a realistic sense is not every pathway has to be clear. So if you are having, let's say, a spirit, if somebody's actual spirit is still trapped here, it's because their pathway was not aligned. Maybe they were supposed to go through a door, but the door was locked. I don't like to believe that everything happens for a reason because of things like that, because yeah, what if it was supposed to go this way, but it didn't, and now your energy is stuck here? But we perceive it as a ghost because it's distressed and it's confused and it's lost. Not just, oh, I'm angry, you know.
Interesting. Yeah, I kind of, yeah, I don't know what, you know, I believe that there are things that we don't see on a day-to-day basis, and there are places that can hold energy like that. What that energy is and why it manifests as a person or I don't know. I don't understand that.
That's the pursuit, though.
But yeah, for sure. And I do believe that it might be just the way that we're perceiving that energy and the way that we're receiving that energy, and our brain is kind of displaying that mental image for us to understand what we're feeling, what the energy is in that area. That's why a lot of times I think that like people will see something but they don't catch it on video.
Yeah.
Is because their mind is perceiving it as like, I just saw a shadow or I just saw a ghost, but I didn't get it on video.
Yeah.
Or I heard a voice and it didn't capture on the audio. It's just like a sound because that's what our ears are letting us perceive it as. Is like there's an energy here. What is it? And our brain says it's this.
Yeah.
Because that's familiar.
Well, I mean, to put it through kind of another lens, so to speak, is, you know, a lot of ghost hunting, people use, you know, what is it called, full spectrum camera or multi-spectrum camera. I feel like our minds just aren't capable of being full spectrum cameras because, for one, you could witness some kind of event, you know, that's paranormal in nature. The first thing you're going to feel is fear. It's going to kick in, and that's going to eschew all of your rational thought because you're just going to be afraid. But if you're able to get past that and you can look at it as, okay, I saw a shadow and it was in the shape of a person, putting it through different lenses until you come up to the right answer. But I think our minds are just kind of too small for that.
Yeah. And Lou Elizondo actually talks about that also. Talks about like the human brain can only perceive like 10% of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Yeah, and it's a very, very small
it's just
sliver.
a sliver of the entire, like the spectrum is this big and we can only perceive, our minds can only perceive this much of it in sound, light, and feeling. But that's just because that's what our physical bodies are kind of...
It's all we're capable of.
Are capable of receiving. So there's a lot of shit out there that we just are totally blissfully unaware of, I guess, in this existence we're in.
I agree, but that's where being curious comes into play.
Being curious and trying to open yourself up to experiencing the wildness of reality.
The craziness of all the mind-bending shit that's out there.
Yeah.
And I do kind of believe in a way that we're only given enough information that we can process.
Yeah.
I mean, if, you know, let's say God or whatever came down and bestowed all the knowledge of everything you've ever wanted to know, like your brain would explode.
Yeah.
Like...
Or just be fucking grow, like your head would be like this big.
You'd look like the leader from the Hulk and shit. You got this giant brain.
Your brain is just dragging on the ground behind you.
Oh, shit! Yeah, I mean, like, I think even if there was a possible way to explain everything that has to do with UAPs and aliens and everything, your mind couldn't hold that much information.
No.
Or even a smaller thing like ghosts or paranormal stuff, like, it would still melt your mind because it's too much for you to handle in one shot.
Yeah, we went to the bookstore yesterday. Izzy and Karen wanted to get some books. And so I was just like, they were like looking around. They always take forever at the bookstore. So I was like going through and I was like, oh shit. Went over to like the ghost hunting and paranormal stuff, and just reading all the labels of all the books that they have there was already too much for me. And I was like, dude, I feel like I've read enough already. I don't want to buy a book now.
kind of makes you think twice about that Meteor Man power where he could touch a book and receive all the knowledge from it.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Just go to the library and like, okay, I know Kung Fu.
I know Kung Fu. Show me.
Yeah, so just to have that much knowledge, like I said, I was overwhelmed just reading all the titles.
Yeah.
Of the 30 books that were there.
The 30. You know, it's funny, you know, we kind of talk about that, but the older I get, the more I realize knowledge is not the end-all, be-all. Wisdom is much more important.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, you know, we're talking about vibrating at a higher frequency and being more positive and things like that. Like, that's the wisdom of knowing how both sides work and knowing that this one's better.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of the knowledge of, you know, you could say, I'm a good person. I go to therapy and I read these books and I do X, Y, and Z. Like, that's knowledge. Wisdom is understanding yourself, you know. Vastly more important.
Yeah.
Did you buy a book?
I didn't.
I bought a new book yesterday. Was it Five Below?
Oh. Near-death experiences.
Now, I just need to learn how to read.
Hey, baby steps.
I never learned to read.
Today, Junior. No, yeah, there was a few books that I wanted to buy, and I didn't because they have them on Amazon for like $10.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not going to buy them for $30 right here. Plus, I have a hard time with the idea of like physical books, just because they're just turned into clutter after you read them.
It's true. That's why I've never felt bad for giving somebody a book.
Yeah.
Because I already read it, now I can get rid of it.
Yeah. Kara was talking about setting up a Facebook book exchange thing out there in Tooele.
That'd be pretty sharp.
Yeah. Just so you can trade books instead of buying new ones.
Yeah, because it gets pricey.
Yeah.
So
Plus, I think that I want to just pay for a subscription to like Audible, and so I can just fucking listen to them.
yeah, it's hard for me to sit down and read anymore because I have to have it quiet.
Yeah.
Because like the slightest sounds distract me, and then I'm like, and then I'm not actually paying attention. Or, you know, if I have something to do, I'm like, oh, I got to finish this chapter, and I read through it as fast as I can, but then I don't remember shit.
Yeah.
So I enjoy being able to sit down and read, but just the opportunity is not always there.
Yeah, I enjoy reading, but I've always used it as kind of a tool to help me sleep.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I think that my brain is just like programmed to, oh, we're reading, we're trying to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So like I'll read like 4 or 5 pages and start like... Plus I have a condition. Actually, no. That's pretty managed now. My sleep apnea. But,
Nah.
Yeah, I think that I do a lot better with listening to stuff and retaining information from just like listening audibly.
Yeah, I struggle with consuming information passively like that, because I'll be listening to like a podcast or something and kind of zone out into my own thoughts and fuck, I just missed 45 minutes of this. I gotta rewind.
Yeah, I kind of am the opposite. Well, I'll be like listening to it and then forget that I'm driving, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, I'm home.
Good thing the car knows the way.
I made it here. I'm in the driveway. How long have I been sitting here?
Yeah. So I think we really do need to try the CE5 thing again when it's warmer.
I think we might have an opportunity coming up here
I also think we should try it in September.
in September.
How cool would it be to be at the campground next to Skinwalker Ranch and summon some fucking UAPs?
That would be so tight.
Is that your phone? I just heard something that was weird. It's because I'm vibrating at the correct frequency.
Yeah. We'll have to look. I can't remember is it Stargazer Campground?
There's Stargazer was down the road. I think it's Bottle Hollow is the one right next to it, I think. I could be totally wrong.
See if we can reserve one of those camp spots.
Yeah, because it's like the gate to Skinwalker Ranch is here, and then the gate to the campground is here.
Yeah.
So, now, we're at least one night, we're going to have to do that.
Well, I don't think it's going to work, because Stephen Greer says that Skinwalker Ranch is just the government.
It's a terroroid.
Yeah.
I hate that so much.
Basically, it's like them using that as like a distraction for people.
Like, what, in what world does that work?
In the world that he wants the attention on him.
Yeah, see, that's where
Ranch.
I think it's the ego thing of like, oh, it's all bullshit over there. Just watch what I do. That's all that matters.
I've got all the real information. Me and Rick Doty have been working on some shit. He's been writing scripts for me.
Rick Doty's over there. That's what I imagine he does all the time.
Just watches. They're buying it. 3 million views.
I've seen a bunch of Rick Doty interviews, and I'm like, I could see how he's telling the truth about certain things, but it's like, I know what you did for a living, you motherfucker.
Yeah.
I'm not buying anything you say.
Yeah, if you get time, you should listen to that Stephen Greer episode with Danny Jones, because he does have a lot of, he talks about a lot of interesting things, and even just like the way that light and sound and the way that he thinks that these things work is a pretty cool concept, and a pretty, he goes kind of in depth into explaining what his theory is on it. Mm-hmm. Which is different from a lot of the other things that I've seen with him, just talking about how he's going to tell about some shit and then never does.
Well, I even think about light in terms of how it can play with your brain waves. Have you ever heard of EDMR?
Yeah.
So I tried that for a little bit while I was in therapy, and it was a really interesting concept, even though it was more about mental tracking than anything. It's getting your eyes to focus on this moving light so that you're kind of like only focused on doing that one physical action, so your mind can go on and work on other things, know. So it's an interesting concept, but I don't think it's as predicated on the light, but the color of the light helps. Where you have people doing red light therapy now, which is actually really cool, really great for you, or UV light therapy. So the way light affects your mind and your body is palpable. It's a real thing.
Oh, yeah. So there's even, I can't remember if they were there last year. I think they were. That place that does the light therapy that's supposed to induce almost like a DMT trip. Yeah.
There's actually an app you can put on your phone for that.
Yeah.
It'll just flash your flashlight at you. But I haven't tried it yet. I'm kind of like, what if it works?
Yeah. I'm going to do it on the way home.
Car knows the way, it's fine.
No, I won't do that while I'm driving. I'll wait till I get home and do it.
You're in the driveway just like, fuck, I can't wait.
Dad's been in the driveway for 9 hours.
There's a flashing light going on in there. Should we check on him? No.
I think he might be dead.
You're just sitting there. The trees are talking!
I couldn't Tetris my way out of the car. Oh, it's a lot of, if people are listening or watching this, definitely check out these people, Jake Barber and Chris Bledsoe. Diana Pasulka, if you want to get kind of more of a religious aspect or view of it. Stephen Greer.
Begrudgingly Stephen Greer.
Yeah. They have a lot of content out there, and judge it for yourself.
100%. Consume all the knowledge and create your own wisdom.
I like that.
That's the way to do it.
That's what we're trying to do, right?
That's all we're trying to do. We have all the answers now.
We're so wise, dude. Our brains are growing.
I can feel myself levitating. I'm a fifth dimensional being now. Oh, one thing I did want to touch on before we finish was in that Sean Ryan show with Chris Bledsoe, and he kept bringing up the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And one thing that I found entertaining, and I can't remember if he said it or it was Sean Ryan, but they had a screening with Ronald Reagan for that movie. And when they got up after the movie was over, Ronald Reagan said, only about a handful of people who see this movie are going to know how true a lot of this is.
Yeah.
That wasn't verbatim, I paraphrased, but very crazy concept there.
Very crazy.
Yeah. I gotta admit, I've never actually seen that movie.
I watched it when I was little. I'd have to rewatch it.
I remember scenes, because
Yeah.
I remember...
Remember, like, the spacecraft flying over the top of the Devil's Tower or whatever.
Yeah. I remember when it flew past him and he went home and he was like washing his face. Half of his face looked sunburned.
Yeah.
And the song they played. And now that I'm older and kind of into all that stuff, it's really funny that you have like J. Allen Hynek in that movie and some of the other people in that stratosphere of UFOs and stuff.
Yeah, you might get the homage references to the...
Yeah, almost like they were there like, no, the aliens wouldn't do that. We've been studying them a long time. This is what they would do instead.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
Yeah, I got to rewatch that. It's on my list of things to do. Yeah, so do you think you can telepathically communicate with UAPs?
Right now, no. In the future, I'm going to try.
I think you could. I think I can.
I mean, it's like saying, do I think I could climb Mount Everest? Probably. But I'm going to have to train for it.
Yeah, for sure. But I think just on kind of raw brain power and will and intention.
I think we can get there.
Yeah. I think we could probably get there easily.
Set some intentions.
Set some intentions. Have good intentions. Not try to, get them to come here so we can jack their ride.
No.
Just show up,
Yeah.
That's all.
Give out some positive vibes.
Some positive vibes. Just put some fucking woo-saw out there.
You want to come over here?
They're like, do you want me to bring...
You want to go? You want to go?
You want me to bring the probe thing, or... All right, I think this is a good topic. I'm glad we covered it, and I'm really looking forward to trying it.
Yeah, me too.
It's going to be fun.
Skinwalker Ranch.
Skinwalker Ranch.
We'll start developing the skills.
Start practicing.
Start practicing.
For sure. Okay, I love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.